In this lesson, we're going to not only talk about lighting, but also how to use a pre-built Maya fluid effect inside of Maya. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is go up to Window, down to General Editors, and over to Visor. And that's going to open up the actual visor here where we can preview some of our samples. So all we have to do is go over to the tab that says Fluid Examples. And we have a number of options here. You can start playing with clouds and different explosion types and fires. We're going to move down to where it says smoke. And there's a puffball. And this is a great little example file that we're going to start working with. All right, middle click, drag and drop it into your scene. And now we can close the visor. So essentially what we've done is added this fluid effect to our scene here. Now we do have a camera that we're going to look through. So we'll just go ahead and select the camera and choose Look Through Selected. Okay. And I'm just going to give myself 100 frames. And we're just going to let this play. There we go. To about frame 61, let's say. All right. So one of the things that I want to do on this container is first off, go to the lighting panel here, lighting attributes, and turn off self shadow. Okay. I want to show you what this looks like without any of this on. So let's just close everything up, just to keep things nice and neat. And this would be if you were to create a regular effect having no self-shadowing. Let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so that renders fairly quick, about 15 seconds. And you can see that it's a little bit soft and fuzzy. It doesn't give a lot of depth to this. So what we're going to do is actually turn on self shadow. Now the slider has very interesting attributes. If you set this to 0, essentially what you're saying is no shadow. Okay, and you can see that automatically happen here in our viewport. If I set this to 1, what I'm saying is whatever the shadow is, make it black. Okay, so I'm going to set this to 1, and I'm just going to hit render here, and we'll give that a second to cook. All right, so you can see that that took 52 seconds to render. However, here's our before and our after. We get a completely different look. So without having to go in there and modify any of our shaders, we're getting this really nice level of depth. Now that's 100% opacity on the shadow. A mixture of that, let me just store this. A mixture of that is if you set this closer to around 0.5. Now what that's going to do is actually take the information that is stored here in the opacity settings in the shading area and then interpret those onto this object here, or this fluid simulation. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. So you can see here, this is a nice mix. So here's before, here's nothing, and then here's after. So you can see how we've added a little bit of opacity back in these edges, and we've given it almost a nicer volume at the end of the day. So again, this is a great set of features right here, the self-shadowing and then the opacity. Now you can choose to use real lights. So if you have a shadow that you're trying to match with a live action shot, or if you're going to comp this in and you want to match the shadow in the rest of your 3D elements, you can choose real lights, and then it will actually calculate the lights in your scene. If not, you can actually put in a temporary directional light, and it will just essentially put in a light for this container, render it, and then call it a day. So really, whichever you're trying to do, just keep in mind that if you use real lights, there may be a hit on rendering because it's going to have to calculate more than one light to figure out the shadow.